Hello and welcome to teleSUR English, and join us as we go live to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, where the Celac VIII Summit is about to begin. Let's see.
You may have your seats. Before we proceed, and while we have some informal greetings, just a general announcement. We wish to inform that there are translation equipment in specific languages, the 4 languages, and just in case the one that you have does not have your language, kindly indicate so we can have a switch. And we wish to acknowledge Landmark Events who have produced this ceremony. will assist where necessary. Yeah, that's the system. Okay, as we proceed. So if there's a challenge with the equipment, just help. Yeah. So the next item on the agenda today will be a report of the Presidency Pro Tempore 2023, and this will be presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Celac Peters. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. Saint Vincent and the Grenadines assumed the pro tempore presidency of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, Celac, at the VIII Summit of Heads of State and Government, which took place in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on the 24th January 2023. On accepting the mandate, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves expressed his desire for the presidency of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines to be a collegiate and collaborative one, drawing on the expertise, resources, and the institutional knowledge and experience of past pro tempore presidencies and the wider Celac fraternity to ensure inclusivity, broad acceptance of its platform, and the ultimate success of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines' tenure as PTP in an effort to further advance the regional agenda. The COVID-19 pandemic, which killed over 6 million people worldwide, brought to halt development in many of our countries. And while the region was still battling with a program of recovery to restore the economies to pre-pandemic levels, the effects of the conflict in Ukraine only helped to exasperate the already fragile situation, with further disruptions in the supply, leading to increased inflation and food security. Added to these were the ever-present existential challenges associated with the effects of climate change on our economies and our search for creative approaches to address some of these challenges. It is within this context that Saint Vincent and the Grenadines up the mantle of the leadership of our community just over 1 year ago. The Buenos Aires Declaration.
We were just listening to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, where the 8th Celac Summit is just about to begin. Let's recall that this summit is being hosted in Kingstown, and we're about to go back to the signal. Let's recall that this is a very important summit. Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is handing off its presidency to Honduras on the summit that's carrying out today. Let's go back to Kingstown.
Drew on the foundation document which was approached at the VIII Summit, the Buenos Aires Declaration. It was also an encapsulation of the priority areas which the PTP considered of immediacy and, most importantly, areas on which, in our estimation, considerable progress could have been made in furtherance of the promotion and development of the regional agenda. The program focused on 13 thematic areas for proposed action, which, for further refinement and clarity, was grouped under the following classifications: economic recovery, social and human development, environmental sustainability, institutional strengthening, and external relations. These thematic areas were complemented by an ambitious list of concrete activities that were to have been implemented during the course of the year. This summary therefore highlights some of the more important areas on which significant progress was made and on which follow-up action is necessary in the upcoming period. However, kindly refer to the details of the full report that has been provided. Regarding economic concrete activities that were to have been implemented during the course of the year, this summary therefore highlights some of the more important areas on which significant progress was made and on which follow-up action is necessary in the upcoming period. However, kindly refer to the details of the full report that has been provided. Regarding economic recovery, the PTP focused largely on promoting efforts towards a regional approach on post-pandemic recovery strategies in critical sectors of the economy. In this regard, we collaborated with the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, the Latin American Development Bank, CAF, and other partners in hosting meetings of Celac, Ministers of Finance and the Economy in Chile and in Spain, together with the European Union Economy and Finance Ministers, to exchange on viable strategies to address these challenges. The PTP gave due consideration to science, technology, and innovation as being pivotal to the region's development. Consequently, a meeting of ministers and high authorities championed by Venezuela was held in Caracas to set the policy framework for further engagement, and this was complemented by the work of a technical working group of experts to map out and recommend a pathway towards the possible creation of a regional center for science, technology, and innovation. The initiative led by Mexico to promote the Latin American and Space Agency, ALCE, as a regional project is a critical component of the region's drive towards the promotion of science, technology, and innovation in harnessing the potential of space solely for the purposes of improving the livelihoods of the citizens of the member states of Celac and as an instrument for development. Of utmost importance within the economic recovery process was the success achieved in obtaining the 2015 San Celac, that is, the Celac Plan for Food Security, Nutrition, and Poverty Eradication. Several meetings of ministers of agriculture and food, as well as a technical working group, were held to discuss with relevant stakeholders and develop the draft plan. The support of the FAO, IECA, and ECLAC, among others, was critical to the success of the updated plan. Today, we can proudly table before the heads the Celac Plan for Food Security and Nutrition 2030. As regards social and human development, the PTP identified with the proposed Celac Health Sufficiency Plan as a priority area for attention. It was therefore considered an important goal to move towards strengthening regional cooperation in research and development, production and distribution of pharmaceuticals, vaccines, medicines, and other supplies in which the region already has some capacity. Critical to the discussion, however, was the issue of a regional mechanism to provide an overarching regulatory framework. Other areas of education, culture and the arts, women, youth and sports, peoples with disabilities and issues of migration constitute important elements of the human and social development agenda of Celac. While there has been slow progress on some of the relevant issues, initial discussions have, however, been held with important partners such as the Organization of Ibero-American States, the OEI, on cooperation in education and training and in culture. This is work in progress, which is expected to continue under the next PTP. On environmental sustainability, Matters relating to climate change, the environment, sustainable development, and disaster risk management featured prominently in the PTP's program, given our acute understanding and appreciation of the vulnerability of all of our countries, particularly the small island developing states of the Caribbean and the low-lying and landlocked countries to natural disasters. In this regard, considerable progress has been made on the Celac Fund for Climate Adaptation and Comprehensive Response to Natural Disasters, the acronym being FACRID, which was approved at the VIII Summit of Heads in Mexico. The fund is practical and of great significance to the region, aimed at strengthening the region's capacity to face the persistent and existential challenges of natural disasters. The FACRID is now operational, with at least 6 member states having already signed the agreement. Meetings of the steering committee have been held and funds have been approved and disbursed to 3 member states which had been impacted by hurricanes within the last year. The debate will continue on the type of structure which we in Celac envisage for the future of this regional mechanism. It is evident that the current structure has its limits and a number of preference for the maintenance of the current structure. The pros and cons continue to be the subject for intra-Celac debate as we seek to consolidate and strengthen this integration mechanism. The national coordinators continued to be the axis on which the work of Celac spun for the greater part of the reporting period. Numerous meetings of national coordinators were held to discuss and negotiate the declaration of the EU Celac Summit and latterly the declarations of the VIII Summit of Celac heads of state and governments now taking place. The pivotal role of the national coordinators within the existing structure of Celac cannot be overemphasized. Celac recognized the value of the exercise of mature diplomacy by regional leaders to bring parties together to preserve the unity and solidarity which are fundamental to the regional project. It is with recognition of the urgent need to promote dialogue and peaceful settlement of disputes that the pro tempore president of Celac, Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves, with the support of the CARICOM chairmanship, brought the president
We were just listening live to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, where the 8th Celac Summit is about to take place. It's actually being inaugurated right now. We were live from Kingstown. This is a very important summit because it reunites again all regional leaders, and also Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is handing off its presidency to Honduras. Let's go back. Let's continue looking at this summit that is kicking off.
The PTP has also reached out to India, the Association of Southeast Asian States, ASEAN, the Arab League, and the Gulf Cooperation Council through exchange of letters of, and the leadership of the AU took place on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2023. We wish to place on record the selfless assistance that we received from many member states of Celac during our tenure as PTP. The immense wealth of knowledge and experience within Celac was always freely shared with the PTP, and for this, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is eternally grateful. Finally, the PTP places on record its sincere and regional institutions which hosted meetings, symposia, and conferences of ministers, high authorities, national coordinators, special experts, and technical working groups throughout the year, especially those that provided administrative support, including the interpretation and translation services to contribute to the successful implementation of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and I trust that we would have a productive summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Minister, for the report, and as stated, the detailed report will be provided to delegates. At this point, at this juncture, we have a very special item, as you will note in your program of events. Our summit takes place in an environment of global disturbances and that challenge world peace and stability. We therefore find it quite timely that we, in our community of Caribbean, Latin American, Caribbean states, can today commemorate the proclamation of the Latin American Caribbean as a zone of peace. And this commemoration, this proclamation was 10 years ago in the beautiful city of Havana. And we will now have some brief remarks from our leaders of several countries. One, it will be from the President of Cuba. We also will invite other members of the head table, including President Castro and also President Pietro, in that order, and we'll end with remarks from Honorable Prime Minister Gonzalez. So at this moment, we'd like to ask His Excellency Miguel Diaz-Canel, the President of Cuba, to offer some remarks on this event.
Querido Primer Ministro González, querida Presidenta Xiomara Castro, estimado Presidente Gustavo Petro, estimado Secretario General Antonio Guterres, excelentísimos jefes de Estado y de Gobierno,
bosses of states,
jefes de delegaciones,
and all the delegations, and the countries of the Latin American and the Caribbean. So we are here handling the anniversary. It's very young, a proclamation, and also the historic of Celac. So the signature of this emblematic document of the 33 countries of the region that was held in Havana. Only the will of everyone will make it possible, but also effective. This means hope for a million of people, which principal concern is the survival in a difficult world that is surrounded by violence. But peace is a right of every people. It's a condition, a fundamental condition for human rights and the supreme right to life. Regions in the world need peace, resources to confront the real enemies of peace: hunger, poverty, climate change, analphabetism, and the lack of resources that is submitted most of the population in the world. So we defend peace. That also means that we must stand before the coercive measures imposed by other countries that pretend to act like judges against the sovereign countries. They must respect the right of every people to choose their path to growth in economic and peace. So it is essential to preserve peace. It is a need to get to an understanding, to debate in a respectful way and see our differences. I remember 10 years ago when the head of the revolution, Raúl Castro, with the condition of the pro tempore president, they affirmed the proclamation. So the unity that we proclaimed was very necessary, and we did it. But it was not just in the hall. It was a very important document that is still alive in this moment for the world and our people. So all the countries that are in the region are here right now will be benefit. Before the differences, we need conversation, dialogues. So, before war and violence, we must defend peace.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. At this point, we will hear remarks from Her Excellency Xiomara Castro, President of the Republic of Honduras and incoming Chair of Celac.
Presidentes, jefes de Estado, primeros ministros, jefes de delegación, socios extrarregionales, miembros de la comunidad de estados latinoamericanos y caribeños, Celac,
members of the Latin American and Caribbean Celac, and special guests, Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, as the President of the Republic of Honduras and President pro tempore of the SICA. Today, I have the honor to assume the pro tempore presidency of Celac. And as a worthy representative of Honduras, I send a big hug, a big greeting to all the region countries, to all the countries in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. So I reaffirm my compromise with peace. This 2024, we celebrate 10 years the proclamation of Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace. The first summit of Celac that was held in Havana, Cuba. And despite all the difficulties we are living right now, we have kept our historic, and we still are, a free zone of war and conflict, a zone of peace. So we must ratify our compromise with peace, and that any country of Latin America or the Caribbean will use violence against a brother country. The differences of the countries of this bloc must be solved between us without intermission or external pressures, with dialogue as a tool. And always thinking in the best thing for the region. Peace is not only the absence of conflict, it's also justice, it's memories, it's truth. It's the right of kids to go to school. It's to share poverty. Peace is to end hunger, the worst form of violence. Peace in Latin America and the Caribbean must be based on respect and not the intervention or inherence of any country into another, equality, the right of freedom and determination of the people. So we must use cooperation and the interchange between us. Latin America has in me a defender for peace. Latin America must raise its voice, making echo its voice, its words of our partner, the indigenous leader, Berta Cáceres. Let's wake up. There's no time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And now we will hear from His Excellency Gustavo Petro, the President of Colombia, which will, at the end of this session, form part of the Troika of Celac.
Ralph, de este país hermoso que no conocía.
Well, this is a beautiful country that I didn't know. So to all the presidents, prime ministers that are here right now, we need to talk about peace, and Colombia needs peace. In the effort of decades to end Colombian violence and bring peace to the country, we have learned a lot of things. Many governments, many political forces, and we have gained moral. I was saying just days ago, when we were pronouncing the war, we got a lot of people with a lot of power, political power. Colombia lifted the word peace as a necessity for humanity. And I would like to say, due to we are going to evaluate us, we are feeling ourselves as a zone of peace, that Latin America and the Caribbean, that is also another of the world, the planet. Why is violence arising in the world? And I dare to say that it has to deal with the main problem of humanity, the climate change, that is produced by the economic system, which is capitalism. And to be left behind, it needs a new economy. We need to separate our world from the world of oil. So we need a change in the relationships with all the regions that are empowering the world. And of course, this brings tension to the politicians in the world. And we have here two big tendencies. One that looks for to leave behind the exploitation of oil, and another that still wants to exploit the resources of the world. So this one that is trying to keep the resources that the world has, they show their military power. They cannot be sustained and that not respect the international law. So they push the buttons of bombs. They are showing us genocides in front of our eyes. This is not the old dynamic of an Israeli conflict, which is proven. But also Germany supports genocide, France, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and above all, the United States. In their democratic version, they support the genocide because they are making a demonstration of the humanity. If we want to change the economy of the world, and they are saying, look at our military power. What is happening in Palestine might happen in any of your countries if you try to make those changes. And here it is, the first danger in Latin America and the Caribbean that we have to recognize, and we must act in a bigger American escalation. We are the most violent region in the world, even more than in all those regions where war is right now. We have seen a genocide of 1 million of Americans, and most of those people are Colombian, but every time they are Mexican, South American. So that violence has produced an exodus. They have taken millions that have been moving a lot of people from the south to the north, to the border with the United States, where jail, death awaits for them. And what produced that violence? That million people in America, if we need to talk about peace. The so-called called war against drugs. So the United States believes that the war against drugs needs repression, jail, assassination, and no prevention and public health to prevent those people to fall in the consume of those substances that are very dangerous. The result couldn't be more dramatic and failed. So, on the other hand, the United States changed their consume of cocaine, marijuana, that was killing them. So we have a big catastrophe. So, because they couldn't prevent and believe that jail is the remedy. So that brought to our countries a millions of death. So if we want to follow these topics with autonomy, we are forced to change the way of thinking. Peace is in our region. It's a political autonomy, a military of Latin America and the Caribbean. And I'm referring in the last one, in the military, because it is very naive to think that we are going to create a peace zone if we do not accommodate to the big blocks of negotiations in the world. We are now before a perspective in the world of change of economic system, like in the past. Now, right now, we are in front of against a war, a political power. This is not a work of an autonomy. Peace, the wish of prevent violently. The situations about us doesn't make you think into an autonomy, a military autonomy of defense of Latin America and the Caribbean. So it is time to go deeper in a mechanism to make our army, police, forces, and the weapons in Latin America to be in function of the political objective, the common political objective of Latin America and the Caribbean. So, our possibility to bring united Latin America and the Caribbean and Africa and bring clean energies, and it doesn't make you think in a different way to get a military autonomy to defend the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And now it is my pleasure to ask Prime Minister Gonzalez and Chair of Celac to offer some remarks.
Your Excellencies, I was in Havana in January 2014 at the second Celac Summit, where this declaration of the Latin America and the Caribbean as zone of peace was adopted. And I'm very pleased that my friend Miguel, the president of Cuba, requested, and we all acceded to that request, to have the 10th anniversary of this declaration commemorated and celebrated here today. In Havana, our country is committed to treat with our differences, controversies, and disputes peacefully through dialogue, negotiation, and other forms of settlement in accord with the sovereignty of states and international law. A recent example of this, on December the 14th, 2023, in the Declaration of Argyll, here in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Guyana and Venezuela agreed to recommit themselves to the Latin America and the Caribbean and a zone of peace and set up modalities for the maintenance of this peace. And I want to congratulate my friends, the presidents of Guyana and Venezuela, on this remarkable achievement, and the peace is holding, despite dissonances occasionally. I want to endorse everything which has been said by the preceding speakers on this subject. Miguel, my dear sister, comrade sister from Honduras, the president, and comrade Petro. And I just want to say additionally that there are several paragraphs in the declaration which we hopefully will adopt later today. Several paragraphs deal with this particular subject. But at this juncture, I would like to emphasize a few matters. The peace and security of our region is unquestionably undermined by the easy facilitation of the exports of guns and bullets, which find their way into the hands of assorted criminals who kill, rob, and terrorize innocent law-abiding persons. And the guns and the bullets come overwhelmingly from the United States of America. They have a Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and they have their own set of values, but they want those values to be made manifest in our region without our own permission. And that is why I'm so happy that the government of Mexico has taken the initiative to bring appropriate legal action against the manufacturers of guns in the United States of America, to bring them to book. And I'm pleased to see that the relevant courts in the United States, they have accepted the complaint by the government of Mexico, and we are moving forward with that particular action. This is a very good initiative in order to help us with our peace and security in the region. Having said all of that, I think it ought to be clear to every wise and mature person that imperialism and hegemony are the natural enemies of peace. Peace is thus an enduring anti-imperialist and anti-hegemonic path. Anybody who, in our region, who wants to embrace war, objectively speaking, is supporting imperialism and hegemony. We don't have to go that way. Justice, prosperity, civilized life and living are the handmaidens of peace. So, as the book of Psalms in the ancient Hebrew text reminds us that we must seek peace and we must pursue it. And in our case, for the good of our region and for all humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Prime Minister. Okay. Excellencies, we are very pleased today to have with us a very special invitee and friend of our community. In the name of the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres. And at this point, we will invite him to give his remarks. Thank you.
My dear friend, Honorable Rolf Gonsalves, Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines and Chair of Celac, distinguished heads of state and government, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to join you for this summit of the Community of Latin America and Caribbean countries, and to do so, to pay tribute to this continent of hospitality, and congratulations to your country for steering Celac over the past year. I also want to congratulate Honduras as the incoming president of Celac. Excellencies, just a few years ago, the people of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines were the victims of the devastating volcanic eruption of La Soufrière. This country faced profound disruptions, but the world also saw your resilience and solidarity. We saw neighbors helping neighbors and the region coming together for support. We need that spirit more than ever today and everywhere. As you come together to help foster solutions for the region and for the world, I would like to highlight 4 areas in particular. First, we need solidarity for peace and security. Latin America and the Caribbean have shown how unity for peace is possible and makes a difference. We have just witnessed it today. The peace process in Colombia has made significant strides with invaluable contributions from Celac countries. The joint declaration for dialogue and peace between Guyana and Venezuela, adopted here in Argyle last December, is another example of the region's commitment to seek peaceful solutions, and I commend your efforts. Yet both cases also underscore that implementation requires sustained efforts. And we also know that peace is far more than the absence of armed conflict. Today, violent and organized crime continue to plague many countries. arms trafficking has become the most important security threat to the region, and it will not be possible to fight it effectively without much stronger international cooperation from the source to the streets. Ecuador is the most recent example of how the security situation can quickly deteriorate and spiral into violence. I welcome the new security partnership launched in January by the Andean community. In Guatemala, the new government offers a chance to advance democratic development, the rule of law, and other key aspects of the peace agenda. Excellences, en Haïti, une situation déjà désastreuse s'aggrave malheureusement de jour en jour. Des gangs tiennent le pays en otage et utilisent les violences sexuelles comme armes. Pendant ce temps, le plan d'aide humanitaire des Nations Unies pour Haïti a besoin d'un soutien financier solide. La semaine dernière, à Rio de Janeiro, plusieurs pays, y compris les membres de la Celac, ont pris des engagements supplémentaires en faveur de la mission multinationale de soutien à la sécurité. Je salue ces efforts, mais beaucoup reste à faire afin de garantir le déploiement de cette mission sans plus attendre et une solution politique qui puisse résoudre les problèmes de fond du pays. Excellencies, second, we need solidarity for sustainable development. The Sustainable Development Goals are slipping away. Millions of people in the region are facing poverty and hunger. I welcome your recent plan for food security and nutrition and the eradication of hunger by 2030. But that requires funding, and many countries are already drowning in debt. The global financial system is failing to provide affordable long-term finance to countries in need and to offer a global financial safety net. Small island developing states have been particularly hit. Middle-income countries are also not getting the help they need. Despite their vulnerabilities, they are not receiving the benefits of critical debt relief and concessional funding. These must change, and that shows the importance of the adoption of the multidimensional Vulnerability Index. Last September, world leaders endorsed our proposed SDG stimulus of $500 billion per year in affordable long-term finance for developing countries. And the stimulus also calls for a debt lifeline to give countries breathing room and the expansion of contingency financing for countries in need. Unfortunately, the resistance has been severe. And so, it's important that the Summit of the Future becomes a vital opportunity to make progress in reforming a global financial architecture that is unfair, outdated, and ineffective. I look forward to your active engagement for change, for a new Bretton Woods moment, and I count on Brazil's leadership as chair of the G20. Third, we need solidarity for social cohesion. Around the world, authoritarianism and extremism are growing. Democracy and civic space are eroding. Disinformation and hate speech are supercharged by new technologies, and growing inequalities are feeding people's fears. Irregular migration has become a political tool to sow division, and it is extremely important to address all the root causes that has transformed this into a major problem for this continent. I'm calling for a renewed social contract based on trust, justice and inclusion, and anchored in human rights in all its dimensions. Leaders have a responsibility to invest in social cohesion, to end violence and discrimination, and to uphold the rights of Afro-descendants and indigenous peoples and ensure that every community feels represented and included, to guarantee women's full participation and leadership, and to amplify young voices. Excelências, en cuarto y último lugar, necesitamos solidaridad para hacer frente a la emergencia climática, que amenaza la existencia misma de los pequeños estados insulares en desarrollo. Los fenómenos extremos golpean con creciente
Phenomena are hidden. every country must compromise to do something so we can work in the economy in 2025. And the global temperature in the world is rising. So these plans must follow the transition. So the responsible of 80% of the population have responsibilities at the time of leading these efforts. They must lead a world elimination and make a fair transition. I know that many of your countries started the use of renewable energies, but we need support. We need the development countries to do effective the climate justice, guaranteeing a substantial finance for the damages that is creating, but it's not enough. So the compromise of $100 million that at least we need to bring it at least to $40,000 million, and it's just a small part of the needs. So it is moment to recapitalize the banks in the region and to change the business model so we can increase the investment to mobilize massively the finance in private inventions. So I congratulate Celac for the creation of an organization for climate change nations. So Brazil, the fourth international conference, that is going to be celebrated in May in Antigua and Barbuda, represents another opportunity, a great opportunity. We know that a future with low code emissions, we must be sure that those minerals are just and sustainable. We have created a new panel to guarantee precisely this. And at last, while we prepare for the Conference of Biodiversity to be held in Colombia in December, we need to take a look at the possibilities of the ecosystem of this beautiful region. We must create efficient region systems to face these excellencies. Solidarity and cooperation is the mission of Celac. While the positions, and I remind in particular that Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is in the exercise of the National Assembly. So I summon you to use this for the benefits of peace and the world. You can count on my support, and I wish you to have a very good meeting, a very useful meeting.
Thank you so very much, Excellency. And at this point, we will like to have a cultural interlude. I know last evening, for those of you who were present, we had a magnificent display of our local culture, and from all reports it was very well received. And now we will have a short display of that again. So those who weren't there last evening will still have a taste.
Brown, Vinci, hands up high, and let me hear you say. Places in the world, things to see. From the hills to the mountains, high, high, high. Every man, every woman, every child. If you can't convince it, to hands up high. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. Jump and say, jump and say, jump and say. Wave and say, wave and say.
Oh, thank you so very much. And there is much more of this to be enjoyed in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so we are inviting all of you to return, not to be doing this sort of work alone, but for other reasons, and that is for entertainment and for recreation. So make St. Vincent your next holiday following this. At this point, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, my Prime Minister, and for those local, our comrade, Honorable Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves, the chair of Celac, to offer some remarks.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Permit me first to indicate that the two young men whom we have seen here, they're homegrown talent. But in our community, we may not have the requisite infrastructure to develop formally the homegrown talent. So in each of those cases, and there are several other cases, these young men and young women who are skilled in the field of music, these two are graduates in music from the Edna Manley School of Music of Jamaica. It is one way in which we carry out our functional cooperation within Latin America and the Caribbean. In the same way we send our students to Cuba and elsewhere. Excellencies, my comments today are made under the title Celac, Faith, Fresh Hope, and Love. So my dear brothers and sisters, my friends of our Latin American and Caribbean civilization, and other special guests who are here, on behalf of the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I welcome each of you to our archipelagic homeland of 32 islands, a magnificent component of our Latin American and Caribbean civilizations. Please be assured that it is also your home of faith, fresh hope, love, and solidarity. In our landscape and seascape resides permanently the spirit of the indomitable Joseph Chatoyer, in the same heroic pantheon alongside Toussaint Louverture, Simon Bolivar, José Martí, Fidel, Chavez, and Cheddi Jagan, and other titans, not of mythology, but of lived struggles for our people's humanization and the integration of what Martí simply called our America, a geographic locale of 33 independent countries bound together since 2011 as the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, your host, holds an especial place in the historiography of our America. There are several notable features of this small but special land of which you may not be aware. Permit me to refer to some. First, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines had the shortest period of the enslavement of African peoples in our hemisphere, from 1764 to 1838. Our rugged terrain and the militancy of our indigenous people, the Kalinago and the Garifuna, kept colonialism at bay for over 200 years. Secondly, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines had a population of free Africans before enslaved African bodies arrived in 1764. Among these free Africans who were here before slavery were runaway slaves, so-called runaway slaves, from Barbados, and some who survived a terrible shipwreck. They were embraced by the indigenous Kalinago, who came to our country over 2,000 years earlier from the Orinoco. This is a land of Celac, from the Orinoco. Their offspring formed a distinct nation, the Garifuna. The Garifuna are the only people of African descent in the hemisphere who were never enslaved and never submitted to enslavement. Thirdly, in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the last and longest continuous struggle, a 31-year guerrilla war against European colonialism occurred from 1764 to 1795, in which latter year our resistance was defeated by British colonialism, and our leader, our sole national hero, the Right Excellent Joseph Chatoyer, was ambushed and killed. In victory, British colonialism carried out a large-scale genocide against the Kalinago and Garifuna, isolated some 5,000 of our patriots on a nearby inhospitable island of Baliceaux, B-A-L-L-I-C-E-A-U-X, populated only by lizards and iguanas. Within 6 months, 1/2 of these 5,000 patriots died from a lack of food and water and assorted disease. The remainder were forcibly transported to the Bay of Honduras on Roatan Island. From there, they and their descendants established Garifuna communities in Belize, in Guatemala, in Nicaragua, and in Honduras. This land, which we call Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, is known to them and our indigenous people as you remain. It is blessed by our ancestors and their struggles, and it is watered by their blood, their sweat, and their tears. That is why, in addition to singing the anthem in English this morning, there was a verse which was sung in appreciation and in respect for our Kalinago and Garifuna brothers and sisters. It was sung in the language of the Garifuna people. Our inheritances are special. We are metaphorically a symphony. We are the songs of the indigenous people, the Kalinago of the Orinoco and the Garifuna. We are the rhythm of Africa, and we are the melody of Europe, and we are the chords of Asia, and we are the homegrown lyrics of the Caribbean. Like all symphonies, there are from time to time dissonances. And we address our dissonances. But we are indisputably an integrated whole. We are part of an island and seaboard civilization, a land of liberty, democracy, and progress, made by our own hands and brains in solidarity with our friends and allies, and we guard our independence and sovereignty jealously, and we treasure solidarity. Our Celac was formed out of a confluence of predisposing and inducing circumstances. And there are two persons who are here at the occasion prior to Celac's formulation, the original meeting in Bahia, my dear brother Lula and myself. My dear brother took a sabbatical, and I have stayed on since then up to this period. Our nation's common history of European conquest and settlement, the monumental crimes of native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies, the condition of indentured servitude, the undemocratic gubernatorial governance arrangements of a rapacious colonialism, the struggles for the reclamation of sovereign independence and popular democracy, our contemporary battles against imperialism and an iniquitous political economy of global monopoly capitalism, of which my brother, the Secretary General, spoke. Our quest for sustainable development and inclusive societies, and our geographical closeness have all conspired to predispose us towards creating Celac. The requisite glue of solidarity, of purpose and action in our contemporary times, in pursuit of peace, justice, prosperity, and security for all, based on the popular will, induced us to establish this celebrated regional integration mechanism, Celac, a community of sovereign states. We gather in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines for Celac's VIII Summit at a time of extraordinary global challenges of great complexity, awash with multiple contradictions. These impact significantly on our America, and specifically on our people's lives, living, and production. These externally sourced encumbrances and burdens, which restrict or constrain the scope of action of our people, are made more complicated by homegrown weaknesses, limitations, confusions, and conflicts. Despite our strengths and possibilities, inclusive of those resident in the genius of our peoples, even with our own burdensome travails and setbacks, we have advanced commendably. We, by and large, we are ordered societies with thriving civilizations and a material base reasonably supportive of uplifting lives and living. We are thriving civilizations. We do not need lessons from anybody about we having civilized life and living. We in Celac have a roadmap for confronting meaningfully our challenges, encumbrances, burdens, weaknesses, and limitations. And from our inherited and extant conditions, we have set forth accordingly a package of policies and programs to advance our people's interests. Our draft declaration of Kingstown of nearly 100 paragraphs, which I expect to be adopted unanimously today, contains the necessary and desirable pathway on the 12 headings. You have the declaration. I don't need to repeat those rubrics. Additionally, there are 9 declarations on specific subjects which we expect to be adopted today. Over the past year, since the election of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines as the pro tempore presidency of Celac in January 2023, relevant initiatives were undertaken within each of these broad frameworks. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of our country reported earlier on these, and you would have noticed that this very small country, who many persons doubted our capacity to do this job, we had a very active year. It is up to you to judge whether we did well or not. It is still necessary, though, to summarize certain highlights of functional cooperation, advocacy, and mature regionalism, including the platform for food security, the push for enhanced air and sea transport, the elaboration of the health sufficiency plan, the proposal for the establishment of the Latin American and Caribbean Center for the Development of Science, Technology, and Innovation, the joint promotion of an environment for open, secure, stable, accessible, and peaceful information and communications technologies, the coordination of efforts to address the issues of climate change and disaster mitigation, including the promotion of the Climate Adaptation and Comprehensive National Disaster Response Fund, the FACRID of Celac, which Mexico and Argentina initiated and which we have put some resources, and I ask all members to put resources to this particular response fund. And the consideration of the Caribbean Sea as a special area in the context of sustainable development. And then there was the initiative of our country to activate the technical working group on Afro-descendants of Celac, and enhanced activism for reparatory justice, including the promotion of CARICOM's 10-point plan for reparations, and the activism in maintaining the Caribbean as a zone of peace, including the sterling efforts to reduce tensions on matters consequential to the border controversy between Guyana and Venezuela, which resulted in the Argyle Declaration of December 14, 2023. In the latter regard, that is to say of the Argyle Declaration, Celac and CARICOM, without any involvement whatsoever from any foreign source, because the foreign sources in Guyana and Venezuela have been seeking to create confusion, but without any foreign involvement, Celac and CARICOM, in solidarity with Guyana and Venezuela, convened a dialogue for peace at Argyle. This homegrown effort by Celac and CARICOM has had many architects and builders. But Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is duty-bound to recognize the extraordinary contributions to this process of peace building by President Lula of Brazil, President Petro of Colombia, President Diaz-Canel of Cuba, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit of Dominica and the chair of CARICOM at the time, and Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados. However, without the wisdom and maturity of two highly esteemed leaders, my dear friends and brothers, two combatants for peace, President Ali of Guyana, and President Maduro of Argyle. Without them, the Pact of Argyle would not have been possible. We thank, too, the tremendous effort provided by a great man of peace, Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Excellencies, over the past year of our pro tempore presidency, we have come to realize more than ever that although the shortest distance between 2 points geometrically is a straight line, mountains, especially political mountains, cannot be scaled by way of a straight line. It is necessary, if not always desirable, to make zigs and zags in the ascent of any political mountain, while bearing in mind the goal is to arrive at the mountaintop. Thus, the zigs and zags must never restrict us in a cul-de-sac or a dead end. So compromises in a complex world are required in our pursuit of peace, prosperity, and security for all. The understanding of all this is fundamental to life and living in the real world, suffused as it is with contradictions galore, which are to be resolved or at least muted. Having understood this matter, we then apply our hearts to wisdom in arriving at a mature judgment. This has been a major lesson of history, including that lesson taught in the sacred texts of the Hebrew Bible and the Holy Quran. Accordingly, it is distressingly painful to witness live on television the intransigence of the government of Israel and its small and dwindling number of defenders in the perpetration of genocide against the people of Gaza and the Palestinians generally. In our draft declaration, we are demanding, among other things, an immediate ceasefire, ample humanitarian assistance, the observance of international law, a resolution of the peaceful resolution of the conflict, and a two-state solution as repeatedly endorsed by the United Nations. Similarly, the terrible ordeal in Ukraine must come to an end with negotiations for peace. The continuation of this senseless war has the potential of leading humanity into a nuclear Armageddon. In our region, our beloved Haiti, the land of Louverture, continues to be in turmoil and conflict. The government lacks popular legitimacy, and it has been ineffective. One alarming statistic is that in January 2024, more Haitians, over 1,200, were killed in Haiti than Ukrainian combatants in the war with Russia. The country is gripped by a political, humanitarian, and security crisis. The UN Security Council has adopted a framework for a resolution, and the Caribbean community, of which Haiti is a member, is seeking with Haitian stakeholders to fashion an appropriate political and governance path forward. But at the end of the day, this is a matter profoundly for the Haitian people. They are required to make judicious compromises without compromising their own values in the interest of the people of Haiti. Perfection must not be made the enemy of a good transitional staging post on the way to peace, security, and a democratic way of life. At the recent CARICOM meeting in Guyana, I am satisfied that the Prime Minister of Haiti has recognized what we are saying